Social Media University. When you talk about building this hub that you've really developed for yourself on Instagram, when you see a piece of content and you hear yourself speak and people are experiencing it right now, like you're very good at expressing like a story and telling stories and like educating and creating a transformation. For people who aren't, maybe they don't have that innately, what can they do to start posting content?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it's less so about trying to back into a style that you see that works for someone else and try to figure out which style is going to work for you. Now, you're going to hear that advice a lot and it feels overly generalized. However, the best way, the first decision that you have to make is that you want to produce content at all. Now, that seems silly, but I remember when I was getting started, I was like half in, half out. I kind of sort of wanted to make content, but I wasn't, and so it's almost like if you just like half commit to the gym. It's like you're wasting your time. I've been there, by the way. You're wasting your time. You're at the gym. You're doing these lazy sets. You're checking your phone. You're not really getting gains. You're not really getting stronger. You're just kind of wasting time versus if you can compare, if you've ever been in a mindset where you say, all right, I'm going to lock in on this. It could be anything. You get a lot more out of it, significantly more out of it in a shorter period of time. So your progress is going to match your intensity. And you don't get to build any intensity until you decide. You first have to decide, I'm going to go to the gym. And so in this particular case, you have to decide, I'm going to make content. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I don't know which medium I'm going to focus on. I don't know a lot of things, but I do know that I'm going to do this actually. And then from there, man, experimentation is going to be your best friend. One thing that I can help you with is say, I'm a big fan of experimenting broadly. However, try and experiment on the platforms that have the most unique opportunity today. So for example, I personally would not encourage you to experiment with producing for Facebook, for example. It sounds obvious. So take the inversion of that. Well, we just briefly touched on, well, what are the biggest opportunities right now? Clubhouse, LinkedIn, TikTok. Can you decide to experiment within these three realms? Because these are the platforms that are on the rise organically. And guess what? Once they mature, you don't get that organic spurt back. You just don't. Now, it's going to go away, but we don't know how long it's going to last or when it's going to go away. And if there's anything I can tell you, as now, I'm 28, so I'm still young, but I'm old enough now to have seen a few of these cycles. And now I know when I see it, go all in on it. Worst case scenario is that platform gets irrelevant and you learned a whole lot. Best case scenario, that platform becomes the zeitgeist and you can capitalize big in whatever way you want, whether that means branded deals, whether that means building that platform to build your next platform, whether that means creating your own e-commerce brand, you name it. The possibilities are actually endless, but you don't get the luxury of having those options unless you have that platform. And it's much easier to build that platform when a platform is on the way up versus when it's on the way down.
Yeah, the early movers advantage is something that can be truly game changing for anybody who takes advantage of it, especially if they double down and do it the right way. But I love that you said that the first thing you have to actually do is decide, okay, do I even want to create content? Because if you do half-hearted output, you're going to get half-hearted results. So for anybody who's like maybe on the fence, like why content? I know obviously I preach that all the time, but from your perspective, why create content?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, if I have to explain to you why, then then I don't think that you must be, blind to what's going on. But B, I have no interest in convincing you. Because one thing that I've learned is early on, I did try and spend time convincing people that this was going to be it. And I felt that it was a massive drain of energy on myself. So then I asked myself, well, then why am I trying to convince anyone? And then I switched to, okay, well, fuck it. The market is going to decide. And if I believe this is right, then let me go execute on it. And so for anyone whom is on the fence, if you believe in your heart that this is the right thing to do, you have at this point ample examples that show you how content can materially transform your life. I would spend zero time trying to convince anyone, but I would spend a whole lot of time upping your skills and getting in the game, because if you believe it's the right game to play, you'll be glad that you jumped in sooner than later. And it can feel like you're jumping in late, but late and early is always relative. It's late if you're jumping into email marketing. It's early if you're jumping into TikTok. It's early if you're jumping into NFTs. It's early if you're jumping into Clubhouse and so on and so forth.
100%. And like I always felt like I think it's Sean Cannell from Think Media. He's like, the best time to start on YouTube was like 2010, but the second best is right now, right? Like you can't go back and change that. You only have what you now know. So if you see an early opportunity, you got to move. And so